As Mike McDonald said after the game yesterday, injuries are part of the game in the NFL. Teams have to be able to withstand them, but the Seahawks are decimated on that side of the football. Are there some happy returns coming heading into week 6 against the Jaguars? We're going to examine a long injury list for the Seahawks and who may have a chance to be back this week on a jam-packed Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks.
You are Locked On Seahawks, your daily Seattle Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Greetings, 12. This is Corbin Smith, host of the Locked On Seahawks podcast, your daily Seahawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to all the 12s who are listening in, whether you're down in Vancouver, Washington, or listening in Globe, Arizona, near Cardinals territory. We greatly appreciate each and every one of you supporting our show and listening 5 days a week. The Seahawks suffering a tough 38-35 loss at the hands of the Bucs, a back-and-forth shootout, particularly in the second half where defense became optional. We're going to be taking a deeper dive into that loss on offense, defense, a little bit of a sprinkle of special teams in there as well. Jam-packed Monday episode coming your way courtesy of our friends at Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward. Mazda, move and be moved. Now for your lead story here on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. Injuries are part of the game when you're talking about football, particularly in the NFL, and certainly the Seahawks couldn't use injuries as an excuse. Yesterday, Tampa Bay was playing without a ton of players. Both teams decimated, particularly on the defensive side of the football. But the Seahawks already had 3 starters out going into the game. Then Derek Hall exits in the first quarter. Reek Woolen exits in the third quarter. Rob, the Seahawks now have 5 starters, or at least starter caliber players that are sidelined. And they've got a game coming up against the Jaguars. Jacksonville is going to be playing here in a few minutes against Kansas City. Jaguars getting a shorter rest than the Seahawks are getting for this week 6 game. But nonetheless, the Seahawks are hoping they're going to get a few of these guys back. And we did get some positive updates from Mike McDonald this afternoon. Devin Witherspoon had imaging this morning, but it sounds like he's got a chance to practice this week, as does DeMarcus Lawrence. Getting both those guys back in Jacksonville would be huge. But as for a few of the other guys, no updates on Reek Woolen in concussion protocol. And Derek Hall, oblique injury, injured reserve, not an option, not in consideration, but sounds like he could miss a couple weeks. And with the bye coming up in week 8, might not have a reason to put him on IR because you have that buffer in there. But sounds like he could be out for a significant amount of time. This is a defense that has been pretty darn banged up as of late.
Yeah, no question about it. And, of course, Tampa Bay Buccaneers took full advantage of that. I think that you have to give Baker Mayfield, Grizzard, the offensive coordinator, an awful lot of credit. But, yeah, I do think that the fact that Seattle was shorthanded in this football game, the lack of starting experience, I think, in the secondary really showed up in this particular game. And so, yes, I think that Seattle needs to have as many of these defensive players back. And as you said, Corbin, I mean, obviously injuries, impact every team. But for this to be on one side of the football, coming on the heels of a game in which a team that was ranked in the top 5 in terms of points allowed per game suddenly drops into the middle of the pack, I think that it was obvious how much the Seahawks lost or how much the Seahawks were missing all 5 of those defensive players.
Yeah, and I think yesterday, the Devin Witherspoon absence, that was the most that they have felt it. And it seemed like they had their struggles in the slot in this particular game. They were having troubles on the edge, setting the edge against the run, including on the first 2 rushing touchdowns they've given up this year. Tampa Bay was able to get Rachaad White to the edge on both those and seal multiple defenders. So they're missing number 21, and I think they need his mojo, the attitude that he brings to the field. And I also think DeMarcus Lawrence is a massive loss for this football team because he has just brought that physicality and that toughness up front. And I think he's been a much better as a pass rusher than maybe his raw numbers are going to indicate. But another guy they missed badly setting the edge. Their run defense numbers were great overall, but it was in certain situations when they had to make a play, they couldn't come up with it. In the red zone, those couple times they gave up rushing touchdowns, that 12-yard run on the final third down of the game, Tampa Bay was not in gimme kick range there if they could have got a stop, but they lost contain on that play as well. So those two, and obviously Julian Love, and he's the other one that we don't know right now. Sounds like maybe he could practice the end of this week, but he's not quite where Devin Witherspoon and DeMarcus Lawrence are at, where they're thinking maybe Wednesday those guys could be back on the practice field giving it a go. It sounds like they're going to need a little more time for Love. Who knows if he's going to be ready for this game? They might have to wait till the following Monday night against the Houston Texans when they get back home. Reek Woolen concussion protocol, you never know. He might miss a little over a week. He could be back for this game. All those concussion protocols, guys go through them at a little different pace. It depends how severe of a concussion it was as well. But I like you said, I think the big issue has been all these injuries happening in a couple of weeks on the same side of the ball. And I do think you reach a point where it doesn't matter how much depth you have. When you're chucking in fourth and fifth string corners, fourth and fifth string safeties, and you play a team like Tampa Bay that's got all those weapons and a quarterback who is just playing with house money right now in Baker Mayfield, playing as well as anybody in the league, when your pass rush isn't getting home, on top of that, look, it is a recipe for disaster. And we're going to dive deeper into the specifics why things didn't work out on defense yesterday. But I do think that the injuries contribute part of it. And I don't even know if it was from a physical standpoint or a talent standpoint. There were a lot of plays. It just seemed like guys were not on the same page. And if you have, look, this is a team sport. If you have one guy that isn't doing what he's supposed to do or isn't sure what he's supposed to do, you're going to get gashed. You're going to give up big plays, particularly with coverage breakdowns. And it did seem like there were a lot of plays yesterday where guys were kind of looking around like, well, wait, am I supposed to be doing this? For whatever reason, that combo yesterday, it just didn't seem like it was working. And McDonald owned it after the game, taking the blame, saying guys weren't prepared enough. But I do think you eventually reach a point. You can't use it as an excuse. You shouldn't use it as an excuse. But I do think you get to a point where when you're mixing and matching so many different guys into the lineup where you're more vulnerable to have those communication and assignment breakdowns.
Yeah, and I almost wonder if the Seahawks were surprised that Witherspoon and Julian Love in particular were unable to play in this football game. I mean, let's, just remember, of course, that the Seahawks were playing this game on the heels of that Thursday night victory in Glendale, Arizona. They had the 10 days to prepare. And so I'm happy that you acknowledge that Mike McDonald acknowledged that he and his staff really deserved to have some criticism. It just felt like so many times. That's one of the reasons why I mentioned Grizzard, the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, in his first year, by the way, in that role, that it just felt like that the Seahawks got absolutely outcoached at times in this football game. That every time that Seattle tried to do a blitz, that the Tampa Bay, it seemed like on those particular plays that they had the perfect offensive play to kind of beat that blitz. I mean, certainly Baker Mayfield deserves an awful lot of credit. I like how you said he's kind of playing with house money. I'll say it in a different way. I think he's MVP at this point. I don't know how you can make an argument for anybody else. I mean, maybe there are other players out there who have better individual statistics, but of course this is a team game, and it always comes down to who can win games in the clutch. As good as Sam Darnold played, and we're going to be getting into that in just a moment here, Corbin, but I wasn't so sure that Sam Darnold was going to be able to lead the Seahawks down to a victory, whether it be on Sam Darnold, whether it be at the kicker, Jason Myers. I was very confident that Baker Mayfield was going to march down the field and score. And again, that is a testament to him, to the play calling in Tampa Bay side, the way that they just felt like they had Seattle's number. They knew what Seattle was going to be doing or not doing. And then again, I just thought that Baker Mayfield is playing at an exceptional level. He would just willed his team to that victory.
Yeah, every time he took the field yesterday, I thought, well, there's going to be a touchdown drive. Even after they had 2 field goals at the beginning of the game, it's like they're just moving the ball so easily. And he was such a nuisance. And this is normal. This is what he does. He is not Lamar Jackson. He's not that kind of an athlete. but he just is sneaky good at getting around the pocket and evading pressure and giving himself extra time. And guys were coming open as a result of that. And that was when Seattle got pressure, which, let's be honest, it wasn't very much yesterday. It just felt like one of those games where every time he came on the field, I don't remember too many games against the Seahawks over the years that were like that, but it just felt like he's just going to complete every pass and just dice them up and down the field. And it was just one of those games that Seattle could not figure things out. They did have that fourth quarter stop that resulted in a punt. Seattle's offense went down and took the lead briefly, and then Baker Mayfield came right back and tied the game. So it was just one of those games. And as I said, we're going to dive into the specifics, what went wrong. And I got a couple players that I needed to defend too. And I've already seen a few of the names in the chat. I cannot wait to dish out some of my thoughts after watching the All-22. But we got to get to the offense, which was mostly good yesterday. We're going to talk that first on our Monday Musings, coming up next here on Locked On Seahawks. This is Mazda's Moving the Game Forward, brought to you by those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it, because these moments do more than win. They push what's possible. They remind us to go that extra yard, shift into that extra gear, and keep the game moving forward. Even though the Seahawks fell short in the final seconds, A.J. Barner had a phenomenal game for the Seahawks on Sunday against the Buccaneers. 2 receiving touchdowns, including breaking a tackle from Levante David for his second score near the goal line. That's what keeps fans and players alike moving forward, always chasing the next great moment. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. This episode's brought your way by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home, whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring everybody together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. One of my favorites is Simply Seattle, the home for all your Seattle sports merchandising needs. And if the Mariners advance to the championship series, you better believe that they will have some new shirts coming out instantly. Spending money there doesn't just support the business, it supports the people behind it and the community around it. These spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. Glad to be joined, as always, by my co-host in crime, Rob Rang. And a special thanks to each and every one of the 12s listening in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. The Seahawks dropping to 3-2 on the season, a winnable game slipping through their grasps late, falling 38-35 to Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. If you look at that score, you'd think, man, the offense is really lighting it up. And aside from early in the game when some miscues ended up costing the Seahawks, more on that here in a minute, 35 points, you should win a football game in the National Football League. You should be able to win. And we'll talk about how the defense prevented that from happening in the final segment. But I want to zoom in on the offense first. And as you mentioned, the end of this game, there are certainly some fans, I've seen it. And look, I posed it as my headline for my article after the game yesterday that Sam Darnold was near perfect until that last throw that he made. And there are going to be fans that are going to point the finger and say, Sam Darnold can't finish in the big game. But look, they were down 13-0 in this game, and he came back and led 5 straight touchdown drives. And I think, if I was the spokesman or if I owned Weber Grills, I would be calling Sam Darnold's agent right now, because that dude just screams dad in the backyard with his grill out cooking burgers and then evading tacklers while he's doing it, because that's what he's been doing. He has been so masterful and calm in the pocket, getting around pressure and being able to create big plays. That 4th and 2 touchdown he had to Torrey Horton, the Bucs had a great blitz call. They had multiple guys there, and it didn't matter. Darnold was able to sneak out to his left, kept his eyes downfield. Torrey Horton comes open. He gets the ball to him. 21-yard touchdown on 4th and 2. He has been doing that consistently, and he was above 80% pretty much this entire game for completion rate. And before that last pass, and look, I watched the end zone view of it. If that doesn't hit Logan Hall's helmet, it's going to be 5 yards in front of Levante David over the middle. But Jackson Smith and Jigba's in the area. But because it bounced off the helmet, it caromed extra 5 yards right to Levante David. Sometimes you just don't have luck on your side. And they had a few fortunate bounces that did go their way earlier in the half. But overall, I just think Sam Darnold is playing MVP caliber football. Baker Mayfield just happened to be even more MVP-like in this game than what Sam Darnold was. I think you make an argument that Darnold made a lot more impressive throws because Seattle's defense was giving Mayfield so many layups. Darnold was making a lot of contested throws and under pressure throws. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. I know everyone's going to point to that last pick, but there were so many other reasons Seattle lost this game that if they wouldn't have made some of those mistakes, that doesn't even happen. They don't get in that position where Darnold has to try to will them back around a minute to play.
Yeah, I think that's well said, especially just acknowledging the fact that the Seahawks were stumbling so much early on, and to be down 13-0 and to be able to come back with the precision passing that Darnold has shown in all 5 games so far this season, the awareness of the defenders around him, his ability to kind of run out of pressure, to keep his feet and remain poised. Yeah, I think you have to acknowledge the obvious that the Seahawks' 2 losses, Sam Darnold turned the ball over in the final opportunity the Seahawks had offense. But my goodness, I think if they don't have Sam Darnold, this might be an 0-5 football team right now. I mean, he has been brilliant. And so, again, I think that we use the MVP kind of moniker here, to describe Baker Mayfield. But I think that Sam Darnold would be in the short list of other quarterbacks that deserve that type of credit because he has been brilliant. I want to talk about, again, just the quarterback position, how when Jalen Milroe was drafted, I was certainly among those who was very, very excited about this young man's upside. And while I was a huge proponent of Seattle bringing in Sam Darnold, at the same time, I also was a proponent of, sprinkling in some Jalen Milroe kind of throws, including some Jalen Milroe opportunities, especially in a game like this one, where I thought the Tampa Bay's ability to clog up the middle with Vita Vea and Greg Gaines, that, hey, use the speed that Milroe possesses. But with Sam Darnold playing as well as he is right now, even if Milroe's little, speed option play would have been successful, and obviously it was not. Even if it was, it feels like you are disrupting an offense that otherwise is humming. For what? I mean, just to get a young quarterback an opportunity when you clearly have a guy who's playing at a franchise caliber level at the quarterback position. So to me, Corbin, I am among those who believes that basically we should be using kind of the redshirt season at this point for Jalen Milroe and just
emergency QB.
Exactly. And just let Sam Darnold cook, because right now, he is the, that grill man, as you said, and just allow him to do what he's doing best. And that is, you have to keep him on the field for him to do that.
As a proud grill master myself, I can tell you the last thing that I want is one of my buddies that lives next door coming up and saying, hey, scooch over, I'll help you with the burgers. No, you're not. I'm the one that is going to cook. No, to me, at the quarterback position, Darnold is not going to come out and say that he is against this. He is a team player. He's going to, okay, well, this is part of our game plan or whatever. But it is completely taking them out of rhythm. And in this particular instance, look, if you're going to bring Jalen Milroe in, I'm not running a speed option with a guy that's been cold in the sideline the entire game. Like, that is not the play I'm running, because it's a timing-based play. You got to be in the game. And the pitch was horrible. Like, I saw some people blaming Ken Walker. He's running to the sideline. His momentum's carrying in there. He did the best he could to try to catch. That was a near uncatchable pitch. And you completely took your offense off the field there. And you gave the Bucs short field to go down and get a touchdown. Like, that was a minimum 10-point swing there. So you need to put the Milroe stuff back in the back of the playbook. And until you're up like 3 scores in the fourth quarter, I'm not touching any of that stuff. Like, let him develop on the practice field. It's just, it is not working. This has not been good anytime they've used it. They haven't had anything positive come from it. So I think it's time to ditch that. As far as other positives, I thought the offensive line played pretty darn well yesterday, but I want to focus on the secondary blockers, because that was what everybody was talking about after the game. And then watching the all-22, look, I know everybody's going to talk about Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he had a fantastic game. I thought Cooper Kupp had a fantastic football game. He was catching pretty much everything thrown at him. He was creating after the catch. He had a couple times he was able to eke out an extra yard or two to get past the chains, but he also was killing it as a run blocker, including on Ken Walker's 31-yard run that happened early in the second half. Walker maybe gets 10 yards in that play without Cooper Kupp, and he kicked the corner basically all the way out to the sideline on a physical bruising block. Walker went right off his butt and goes 31 yards. Charbonnet scores on the next play from 5 yards out. And oh, by the way, Kupp had a really good block on that play too. He was blocking like a tight end. He was a madman. The tight ends were getting after it. A.J. Barner, we can talk about him becoming a star with his pass catching, but he had some really nice blocks in the run game here too. I thought the receivers and the tight ends and the running backs, Ken Walker had a nice pickup on that touchdown to Torrey Horton. Wasn't the most clean-looking block, but he at least got in the way, and it allowed Darnold the time to get out to his left. I thought all the secondary blockers in both the pass game and the run game really did an effective job executing their assignments, and that's how you put up touchdowns 5 consecutive drives.
Yeah, I love that you're acknowledging that, because I think, again, you get a reputation, of course, as the running back guru. As a former running back yourself and as a running back coach, I think that's well deserved. And you can break things down from that perspective. But yeah, it was the Seahawks blocking in their offensive line, the receivers, the tight ends, that I think really was one of the differences in why Seattle was as effective as they were. And you watch the broadcast of the games, Corbin, and it's like, it just feels like such a lazy narrative now that, Seattle can't run the football. I mean, what are you talking about? This is, again, a Tampa Bay defense that is very, very stout against the run. Seattle ran for 122 yards. That's their second most rushing yards all season long. In 5 games, they now have 6 rushing touchdowns, at least 1 rushing touchdown in every single game so far this season. Yeah, you're not seeing Ken Walker III have 100-plus rushing yards every game. You're not seeing Zach Charbonnet have 100-plus rushing yards per game. But the combination of the two is one of the more effective 1-2 punches in all of the NFL. So I do think that there is plenty of credit to be spread around when it comes to the run blocking and really the pass blocking. I thought that the Seahawks offensive line did a pretty nice job of pass blocking throughout much of this game. And then the fact that you mentioned A.J. Barner, I think that he deserves, again, some credit. There are 4 pass catchers, all of them wide receivers, that have more receiving touchdowns than A.J. Barner has at this point. So again, I mean, as you said, he is a rising star. It's not even rising anymore. I mean, that move of his is going to become, a dance craze in Seattle because he is doing it so damn often. A.J. Barner is one of the real breakout stars for the Seahawks on offense, and really one of the breakout stars in all of the NFL, quite frankly.
I was loving it in the press conference after the game yesterday. One of the other reporters asked him what the name for that move is, and he was kind of like, I don't know, barn stomp. And I was like, that sounds awesome. Yeah, so exactly. The barn stomp, I think Seahawks fans are going to start really embracing that. And they hope to keep seeing it. A.J. Barner, he's got more touchdowns than what Brock Bowers has got this year. He has been absolutely dynamic in the red zone and in this offense, and he's getting the job done as a run blocker too. Love what we're seeing from the second-year tight end, who's proving that scouting report that he wasn't going to be much of a receiving option. That looks pretty foolish at this point, with him emerging as one of Sam Darnold's favorite targets and definitely his favorite red zone target at this point in Clint Kubiak's offense. When we come back, unfortunately, we have to move away from all the good things, the good vibes from the offense, and we got to talk Seattle's defense, if you want to use that word, from yesterday's loss to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're going to continue our Monday musings, diving into what went wrong, and I'm going to make a plea for one player in particular. Fans need to get off his back because I think he's playing much better than what he is being given credit for. We'll get to that coming up next year on our Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. The NFL season's already heading towards week 6, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, such as how many touchdowns Ken Walker III will run for against the Jaguars, building a same-game parlay with multiple prop bets for week 6, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and it's the best way to add a little more energy to your game days. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Welcome back to the Monday edition of Locked On Seahawks. This is your host, Corbin Smith. He's Rob Rang. A special thanks to each and every one of the 12s tuning in. Thank you, as always, for making Locked On Seahawks your first listen 5 days a week. We greatly appreciate it. And for your second listen, don't forget to check out our friends over on the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. The Seahawks dropping to 3-2 on Sunday with a 38-35 loss to the Buccaneers. It was a track meet throughout the second half. Seattle had the lead briefly midway through the fourth quarter, only for Baker Mayfield to answer, and then an unfortunate interception for Sam Darnold that bounced off of Logan Hall's helmet and into the hands of Levante David. Tampa Bay ends up stealing the win with a field goal as time expires. Part of the reason it reached that point, Rob, was as good as Seattle's offense was, the Seahawks defense was the polar opposite in this football game. And I've had plenty of our listeners that have reached out since the game ended yesterday. What do you think was the biggest issue? And I think when you come out of a game, you can have opinions, but you need to go back and you need to watch the tape. You need to see with the full view, a second and third watch, what really went wrong. And I know that this maybe it'll irk some fans who want to hear about the secondary being the problem. There certainly were some issues back there, but I think the Seahawks lost this football game because of their defensive line. Where was the pass rush? You were playing an offensive line that had a second string tackle. Oh, by the way, Charlie Heck had 18 pressures given up in the previous 3 games. Charlie Heck looked like a perennial all-pro yesterday with the way he was blocking. Seattle got nothing off the edge to speak of. And then you also had a backup guard playing with Cody Mock being out for the year. Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy II, and Jaron Reed had a combined 2 pressures and 0 quarterback hits. That's not going to get it done against anybody. But Baker Mayfield, the dude could have been sitting on a recliner back there most of the game with popcorn. Like, there was no pressure, and the few times the Seahawks did get close to him, they had terrible pass rush lane integrity. And if they would have done this in Arizona, Kyler Murray would have rushed for 400 yards. Like, there were huge creases. And I can't believe Seattle would go into this game, Rob, not guarding against that, because the scouting report on Baker Mayfield, he's not the athlete Kyler Murray is, but he loves to scramble out of the pocket and create that way. He's as good as anybody at extending plays. He's got Russell Wilson in his game from that perspective. That has to be part of your game plan, and yet they had really sloppy pass rush lane integrity, only had 1 quarterback hit. Sorry, I'm not counting 2 of them that happened on the same play. It was 1 quarterback hit the entire game. You're not going to win many football games in the NFL doing that, especially against a QB of Baker Mayfield's caliber and an offense of Tampa Bay's. There was literally no pass rush. And to me, that is an embarrassment when you're going against a line that's got backups in like that. The only way they could get pressure was blitzing, and even blitzing wasn't working. Kudos to Tampa, but this is inexcusable for the Seattle Seahawks.
It is. I mean, an embarrassment is a strong word, and I think it absolutely applies to the performance that Seattle had. It's like the word pass rush. I mean, I think that you should take off the P and the first part of that, and that's what Seattle's pass rush was like. I mean, it was just horrific. And as you said, like the pass rush integrity, your rush lanes. I mean, it felt like I called for Boye Mafe to get a couple of sacks in this football game, and he at least had some pressures against Charlie Heck. And on the other side, against their all-pro Tristan Wirfs, at the same time, when he did rush outside, he rushed so far outside that it was very easy for Baker Mayfield to step up. And I was waiting for a Leonard Williams or a Byron Murphy or a Jaron Reed to kind of be sitting there waiting for him. or perhaps one of the linebackers, or a blitzing defensive back. Of course, D'Anthony Bell getting some of the credit for the one quarterback hit that the Seahawks were able to muster in this football game. It just felt like the Seahawks edge rushers were kind of doing one thing, and the rest of their defensive line was doing another thing. And Baker Mayfield was essentially a cat playing with the mouse at that point, just kind of having some fun and just kind of making things up as he went. And it provided so much time that he was just able to kind of pick apart, again, a secondary that had completely been ravaged by injuries. And, I'm kind of skipping ahead here, but like the lack of reliable open field tackling and the just complete missed assignments in terms of the back seven, in terms of coverage as well. That's one of the biggest reasons why that Baker Mayfield was able to pick apart the Seahawks defense, where so many times the Tampa Bay's pass catchers were basically, there was no one around them. Again, because as you said, Corbin, and I 100% agree, that the pass rush was completely non-existent in a game in which the crowd had to be feeling juice with this being the 50-year anniversary, wearing the original team colors and all of that. There was so much reason to expect that Seattle was going to be able to be effective in the pass rush, and yet the results were completely non-existent.
Yeah, it was. And look, anybody that has listened to this show over the years knows that if I make a statement and then the polar opposite comes true, like I will eat crow. That's, every one of us, I wish I could be perfect, but there are going to be times that we think something and it doesn't work out. I called Fareeq Woolen to be benched in the second quarter yesterday for Nehemiah Pritchett. And as it turns out, Woolen got concussed in the third quarter. And so Nehemiah Pritchett came in for him. And immediately Baker Mayfield on 3rd and 15 goes right after Nehemiah Pritchett, who's on Egbuka, who, by the way, is already an all-pro caliber player. He's incredible. And Nehemiah Pritchett's coming in cold, and immediately Baker Mayfield goes right after him, throws over the top, perfect throw, back of the end zone, touchdown. Pritchett gave up 2 touchdowns in a little over a quarter of action, really struggled and missed a couple tackles too. It didn't seem to matter who was out there, though. Fareeq Woolen had several horrible missed tackles in the first half. And that was part of the reason I was arguing, like, this is a liability. They're getting the ball outside quick, and then he's missing tackles. You can't have that. So as you and I talked about before the show, they learned their lesson the hard way because we know Fareeq Woolen's talents, and now we're seeing why the Seahawks are kind of between a rock and a hard place. Like, hey, we can't send any more messages because we don't have anybody else active that we think is going to be able to go out there and play. Pritchett certainly was not ready for that assignment, and drawing Egbuka is hard. So I will eat crow on that. I think it's a two-sided thing, though, where I think what I was arguing for made some sense, but now we have seen why the Seahawks are like, hey, we can't push that button right now unless Shaquille Griffin's on the active roster, which at this point, I'm wondering if they need to do that because they need to have somebody else who's going to be able to handle assignments and make sure that the coverages are done effectively.
Yeah, I think that you could call for just about anybody in Seattle secondary to be benched after the way they were performing. Not just the secondary, hell, the entire defense that could be benched in that particular game. And it's funny because there is one defensive player that has been kind of bearing the brunt of a lot of criticism. And it's kind of funny because I think that he had a pretty solid game. Ty Akata had a couple of pass breakups in this game. He delivered some of the biggest.
Don't get me started, Rob.
Well, you said that before you're going to be operating the grill. I just don't want my steak burnt, buddy. So I'm going to let you kind of vent about all the Ty Akata criticism out there because I think I agree with you, and I think that he is getting burnt, to use another barbecue kind of reference here, unnecessarily.
Look, I generally keep pretty even keeled on this podcast, but I might go off the rails here. I am so tired of the Ty Okada slander, and I'm going to explain why. I've got method to my madness here. I can't tell you how many fans, and I think part of it's because, when you're watching the broadcast film, you don't see the entire field. You don't see the entire coverage, and even the announcers don't see that. The announcers hinted that Ty Okada was the one that was the reason that Egbuka got a 57-yard bomb on 3rd and 13 in the third quarter. But when I was watching live, I thought that doesn't look like that's on him. Josh Jobe was way back. I think he was supposed to be in quarter coverage. Went back and watched the film. That's exactly what it was. It was cover 6, which means you have quarters or cover 4 on one side and you have cover 2 on the other. Okada was on the cover 4, the quarter side. Josh Jobe was playing 15 yards off the ball at the snap. His responsibility is to take that deep route, and he got his feet caught, and Egbuka just blew by him. And Okada saw the skinny post where, let's face it, Kobe Bryant was in trail there. If Okada doesn't go over there, Mayfield's going to throw a touchdown to that receiver. So he did exactly what he was supposed to do. He had 2 pass breakups in this game. I had 4 targets against him with 1 completion. He gave up a 24-yarder on one of the drives. That was the only negative I had for him. He had 1 missed tackle, but it was on a run play that only got a few yards anyway. I am so tired of fans. I think there's a preconceived notion. You're a practice squad guy. You can't go out here and play. He was, to me, the least of the problems in the secondary. I thought Kobe Bryant didn't play well. I certainly thought the corners didn't play well. Kendrick missed some plays. Jobe, to me, that was all on him. He looked like there was either a communication issue and he didn't run the right coverage, or he just blew it there. But that was not on Okada. If there was not a skinny post coming, then he could have easily come over there. But that is the first threat when you are in quarters coverage. That guy coming downfield over the middle, you need to go be ready to take that. And again, if he wouldn't have, Baker Mayfield's going to hit that receiver, and it's a touchdown probably. So I think that there were a couple other plays that fans were like, Okada did this. It's like, no, he didn't. He was not the culprit behind. He gave him a 24-yarder. Otherwise, he had nothing to do with the issues they had with that. And he had 2 pass breakups. He was probably the only guy, other than maybe Nick Emanwari, making a few nice run stops. I had a hard time finding positives in this game, but I'm going to stop venting. Ty Okada is playing good football, and I'm just tired of fans slamming it on him because he had nothing to do with that long play downfield.
Well, and I love the fact you just mentioned Nick Emanwari, because we haven't talked about the rookie yet. And he did have some very impressive run stops. He also was very much victimized at times in coverage. Ernest Jones was victimized in coverage. Kobe Bryant was victimized in coverage. We talked about Nehemiah Pritchett. I just don't want to just pile on the young man, but he looked like a deer in headlights at times out there. So, again, I think that this is, if I remember correctly, it was about a year ago, or at least in the early stages of the season, where Seattle made some moves at the linebacker position, and making the trade for Ernest Jones, and of course cutting Tyrell Dodson and Jerome Baker, et cetera, et cetera. I wonder if there might not be a move, whether it be at linebacker, whether it be at cornerback, if the team is concerned about long-term with Devin Witherspoon and now Reek Woolen. I think that there might be, some movement here from the Seahawks to get another defensive player, which if you had told me a week or two ago, I would have, kind of laughed at that, scoffed at that idea. But I do think you have to send a message, because this was that frightening, that embarrassing of a performance on a massive stage. And so I do think that there could be some kind of a move. Maybe it's just a practice squad player getting elevated. Maybe this is when Jared Ivey gets his opportunity, or Connor O'Toole, or somebody of that nature. But damn it, what was on the field on Sunday just simply wasn't up to standard, as Mike McDonald said himself.
I could not believe, and this is not a shot at Connor O'Toole, I could not believe Jared Ivey was not active yesterday with DeMarcus Lawrence being out. He has a much more transferable skill set to what DeMarcus Lawrence does than what Connor O'Toole. It made absolutely no sense. And then when Derek Hall goes down, I don't trust Connor O'Toole to play a ton of snaps like that. Jared Ivey, I would be more confident, because I just think he is a much more polished player and he can play multiple positions. I just thought the defensive coaching staff dropped the ball in this game, from the inactives to the prep, and just not having guys ready to play. I'm going to be brutally honest. I think McDonald, when he was shouldering the blame at the end, I don't think he was just doing it for lip service. I think he realized, we didn't do something right this week. And now they're in a position, you're 3-2, you're still very much in the race. This is not a season-ending loss, and there's a lot of positives come out of it. But going with the trades, I'm just going to throw this out there. I'm calling Cincinnati right now again and seeing, your season's over. You're not going anywhere. Joe Burrow isn't coming back next week. You're not going anywhere. Trey Hendrickson, you just revised his contract for this year. What do we have to give you? Can we do a trade of a 3rd-round pick for him? Because it's middle of the season. I'm not seeing enough from Boye Mafe. Derek Hall could be out for 3 or 4 weeks minimum. DeMarcus Lawrence is an older player that could easily break down. He's already now dealing with an injury. They need juice off the edge. They need somebody that can get after the quarterback consistently. I'm calling Cincinnati there, and maybe looking at Jermaine Pratt, who just got cut off-ball linebacker by the Raiders. It looks like the Raiders, it's just one of those situations. Pete's defense just isn't working. I still think Pratt might be able to offer something and be an upgrade over what Seattle's got at that other linebacker spot. But either way, I think that you got to be looking into some things right now, and I would certainly be calling Cincinnati.
No question about it. I'd be calling every team in the NFL right now, just because I think that, I think that you need to have some dudes on defense that are going to bring it. And I think that you need to send a message right now. Again, I think that Mike McDonald basically is sending that message by taking that accountability. But I think that some players have to be held accountable as well.
Yep, and I'm just going to finish this off. Again, my main point of this show, stop picking on Ty Okada. Listen, there were a lot of mistakes yesterday. He did not play perfect by any means, but saying that they had to scheme around him or whatever, no, that they would have ran that quarter set with Julian Love back there too. He did what he was supposed to do. Your outside corner did not do his job, plain and simple. That is the scheme. That's how quarters operates, or a backside of cover 6 with quarters. That is how it operates. And I don't see very many guys going up and making big hits yesterday and tackling. Ty Okada was doing that. So I'm gonna start the hashtag free Ty Okada because I'm tired of it. But anyway, as always, you can follow me on X and Blue Sky at Corbin Smith NFL. Make sure to subscribe to Locked On Seahawks on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast to make sure you don't miss a single episode. We'll have our Tell the Truth Tuesday thoughts tomorrow. Maybe a little more talk about potential trades and signings on the free agent market as Seattle starts to gear up for the Jags. And we'll take a first look at those Jags coming out of their Monday night game against the Kansas City Chiefs. You won't want to miss it. Make sure you listen in. And thanks for tuning into our Monday episode. Go Hawks.